winter is over and summer is certainly on the doorstep when dandelions start popping up. Since the province introduced a ban on pesticides, it's become more of a challenge to get rid of dandelions and those little seed balls that seem to be everywhere and that kids love to blow on. They are scattered throughout the park, people wondering what to do with them. We have a suggestion. Eat them. To tell us more, I'm joined by nutritionist Meghan Telpner. She runs a cooking school in downtown Toronto. She's with me in studio. Good morning.
Good morning.
So I was telling the story about how once I was picking dandelions out of my lawn and Johnny Lombardi, legend in Italian culture in Toronto, walked by and took me to pieces for throwing out these things. Said he survived on the war during the war on these things. That these were a great source of nutrition. What are the health benefits of eating dandelions?
The health benefits of dandelions are massive. If you think about them as a vegetable as opposed to a weed, it starts to change our perspective. So they're incredibly rich in a variety of vitamins, vitamin C, the spectrum of the vitamin B complex. They're also really high in something called inulin, which is an indigestible carbohydrate that actually feeds the good bacteria in our digestive tract, like the probiotics, if you will. So it can actually act as a natural antibiotic.
Is it hard to convince people that what we call a weed is actually good for them?
I think it is. It is a struggle because everyone's trying to battle them out of their lawns all the time. But if you think of a food or anything that grows that is so sturdy and robust and keeps coming back even after you pull it out, when you eat it, you're getting that kind of fuel and that energy.
How do you clean dandelions? Is there any special way that we need to take care of them before we ingest them?
To clean the leaves, I would suggest giving them a rinse with some warm water and vinegar. And you can use the roots very well as a tea, and you would just pull those out and scrub them down, scrub off the soil.
And outside of the tea, do you need to cook them at all? Do you have to blanch them? Do you need to? Are there specific things that you need to do to make sure that you don't poison yourself? Or
no, I mean, depending on where you're harvesting them from, you want to make sure you're getting them from a clean lawn.
Not the spot where the dogs walk past?
Not the spot where the dogs walk past, or not anywhere that chemicals are being used on other things. So you want to make sure that they're clean, but you can use them raw in salads or in smoothies or in soups. So you can cook them in soups, saute them with garlic and olive oil, and mix them in with a stir fry.
And a smoothie. What's the smoothie part?
Well, if you're adding, you're having your fruits and you throw in some of those greens in the morning, they actually act as a great liver tonic and detoxifier. So it helps cleanse your system after a night of repair.
Do they actually taste any good? You have to convince people that this is something that's not just good for them, but that actually could be delicious as well.
The greens have a very bitter, distinct taste. So because of that bitter taste, they're actually used as a digestive aid. So they help promote digestive juice production and bile production, which helps us digest fat. The roots are actually used often as a coffee replacement. If you boil dandelion root tea, it's a very bitter taste. So people who are trying to transition off coffee will often go to a dandelion root tea.
Doesn't sound particularly appetizing at 25 after 6. I mean, the salads, yes, but the tea, I'm not entirely convinced on the tea point.
Throw a little honey in it. It's so good for you, and it does have that bitterness that people like in a coffee. So it will provide that. It's not going to have the caffeine kick, and 6:30 in the morning you might need that, but it definitely is delicious.
This is important in part because we're surrounded by all of these things that we just discount. I mean, there's a lot that you can make use of that perhaps grandparents or your great-grandparents did that we now just term a weed, that we try and get rid of.
Absolutely. I mean, wild leeks are a weed, essentially, and we get very excited when those are the first things to
go to the farmer's market, you pay a lot of
money
for them.
Exactly. So if we start looking at dandelions, another name for dandelion is wild endive, which makes it sound a little more appetizing, doesn't it?
Are there other things that you think that we should be paying attention to that perhaps we would try and yank out of the garden or destroy with pesticides?
Well, there's a bunch of herbs. I mean, you have to be tricky just pulling things out of parks, which is not legal, and what you're eating.
And you have to be careful.
You have to be careful. So having a good guidebook is very helpful. But there's Queen Anne's lace. It's a little white flowers you see sort of that line paths and stuff. Those are traditionally used as an herbal contraceptive, which sort of goes with what you were talking about earlier. I don't know if I would rely on that 100%.
The Queen Anne's lace, man.
Right. Exactly. So there are all those. And mint, too, grows rapidly and everywhere, and people know that mint and lemon balm are very durable plants. It will take over a garden, and those are delicious.
Mojito or something like that.
Absolutely.
Look for the wild mint.
Absolutely.
I just think, again, it's important to remind people of the things that they take for granted, and that, as somebody once said, a dandelion looks an awful lot like what we generally call a flower.
Well, it's related to it's in the sunflower family, so it is. And if we stop looking at it as a weed, and it's a pretty yellow flower in the yard and use it for what it's good for.
I may not get to the tea, but I am convinced on the salad part, in part because I've had them and they're delicious with a little bit of oil and vinegar. Nice to meet you. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you, Matt.